I just got a notification from Political Hub 101. Who is this guy?
Hello, everybody. This is Evan Hunt coming from Political Hub 101. We are currently in
everybody.
Oh, this is Evan Hunt coming from Political Hub. We are currently in Detroit, where the air is full of blacks, and there's so many AIDS you would swear we're in hell. Okay, I'm joined by Terrell McCann Jr. Say hi. Say hi, Terrell.
Hello.
And say hi, Kelvin Hawthorne.
Hello.
Now, both of them are African American, which means neither of them align, which is why I recommend you write in a true conservative like John James. All right, here's the rules, guys. Okay?
What the hell?
We will be getting an opening statement of 2 minutes from you mothers. Okay, after that, I swear to God, if you go over your time, you will be muted, and if you protest, I swear to God, you will be ejected, and this will be over. All right, okay. Kelvin, make your fucking opening statement. I'm bored.
Okay, well, I want to thank the moderating panel for moderating today. I want to thank
You're welcome.
What?
You are very welcome.
Yes, you are welcome, sir.
I want to thank Terrell for being here with me today to debate the issues that matter in this district. I'm glad to be here in Detroit, as the moderating panel mentioned. And I hope tonight that we discuss the issues that matter to this district and to the people in this district. And hopefully you guys will be able to make your decision on who you'll vote for in the District 5 Democratic primary election. Thank you.
All right. Terrell, you say some stuff.
All right. Thanks, Evan. Of course, I want to thank the moderators for being here. Thank you, Evan, Jacob, Logan, for moderating this debate.
You're welcome.
I want to thank Kelvin for the invitation to debate. It's good to be here in Detroit. I've been here all weekend for the at the Service McCann campaign headquarters, where we've been watching the presidential election. So it's good to know that the election is not the election, but the debate is here in Detroit, where I've been all weekend. Yes, we are going to have a very good discussion about the issues that face our district. So let's get to the debate, and I hope that you all will see which one of us is better to handle the job as District 5 Senator.
Okay, I'll be asking the first question. Okay, Terrell, your first question. As you know, you're running in a very white district with a lot of white people who are disenfranchised with the Democratic Party, and both of you are, well, not white. How can you appeal to the white window lickers in Wisconsin? Kelvin, you may start first.
I'm just going to put that question in perspective and say that
How can you appeal to white working class voters?
Yeah, white working class voters. Well, across the district, we see the same situation. We've had the titles like the Rust Belt, which describe jobs leaving this country and leaving our people here in this district out of jobs. And that's something that we have to focus on. I live in the city of Galesburg, Illinois. We've seen some of the biggest mass exodus companies leaving and jobs leaving and leaving thousands of people out of jobs, and then the city shrinks and then all that different stuff. That's something we're seeing across the district. How do we change that? The answer is we need to invest in an economic system that works for everybody. How do we do that? Well, that's simple. Step number one, we need to lower taxes on businesses and ensure that we are allowing financial wiggle room for companies to create more jobs and to provide more and higher wages. That's important. Step two, we need to make sure that we are deregulating business on some of the unfair and petty regulations that have been imposed on them by the federal government. And step three, it is important that we are protecting the labor unions and ensuring that they are given the rights to negotiate fair wages, ensuring that they are given the rights to negotiate contracts, and also to negotiate paid sick leave, and also to have the opportunity of getting contractual health care and insurance coverage from their employers, and having a easy working career. We go through those 3 steps, and I believe that we can bring manufacturing back to this district and restore the prosperity that came before we had titles like the Rust Belt. Thank you.
Well, before I answer the question, I just want to say I agree pretty much with what my opponent said. But I do want to bring up he brought up what was it, sick leave?
No,
Sick
no,
leave?
no, no, Terrell.
Hold on, Evan. Excuse me.
You can use this in rebuttals.
Excuse me. No. He brought up sick pay leave, which I'm glad he did, and I'm going to talk about that after I answer this question. So Evan, you did bring up the point, which is kind of stereotypical. Brought up the fact, excuse me, you did bring up the fact that neither myself or my opponent are Caucasian. So your question is, how can we appeal to those white working class voters? So like I said, I pretty much agree with what Kelvin said. I'm a firm believer in making sure that we have an economy that does work for everyone and not just those at the top. For too long, the people at the bottom have been forgotten about. And we can't have that in this district any longer. I would applaud Senator Adam Evans for everything that he has done for this district, and particularly trying to bring back jobs and things of that sort. For Adam Evans is a great friend of mine. So I applaud him for everything that he's tried to do. But we do need to make sure he also brought up lowering taxes for business. I'm for lowering taxes for businesses, but we also need to make sure, especially we're lowering taxes for small businesses, because small businesses are very important to us. Small businesses can create jobs for us. We need to make sure that we invest in small businesses, because something that, small businesses benefit our economy. And we don't need to continue to tax our small businesses. We don't need to continue to tax them. Taxing them is basically like saying, okay, you can make as much money as you want, but we're going to continue to tax you as much as we want. We can't have that. And so we need to make sure that we are going to go ahead and not raise taxes on our small businesses, and make sure that we're doing things that not only help small businesses, but that help businesses in general, because they are the ones that employ us. And without them, we would not be able to have the jobs that we currently have right now. So in total, that's a few things we want. Evan, back to you.
Logan.
All right.
Do we get a rebuttal?
I just have.
Oh yeah, you can go.
Can I just have a quick rebuttal on that, please?
Oh, you're gonna be rude. Okay.
Okay. First off, I want to keep civil in nature, so I just want to bring up a couple of points. First, Terrell said we want an economy that works for everybody, not just those at the top. I agree with that. To an extent, when people are bringing up the topic of an economy that works for those, not for those, especially not just those at the top, we think of progressive things. And in my political ideology, I believe that many of some of those ideas that go into that phrase have been raising taxes on corporations, and doing all this stuff, which has chased businesses out of this district. And because of that reason, I want to say that we want to create an economy for everybody, and including those at the top. Also, he brought up small businesses. I want to say I live in a small business community. That's what replaced the businesses that left in the mass exodus. So we need to be protecting small businesses. That goes into what I said about lowering taxes for businesses. So I think that's important as well. My grandparents were in a small business. I watched them go through struggles of running that small business and paying tax bills. So obviously we do need to bring down taxes on small businesses as well. So that is also included in my plan, in my 3-step plan that I mentioned. Revitalize the economy of this district. That's all. Thanks.
I'll just rebuttal and say You say that there's a lot of progressive things that go into that saying. Um, when we're talking about the top 1%, that's the most important thing. Um, you brought up taxing them. When we talk about that, as far as taxes, we want to make sure that everyone's paying their fair share. That's the most important thing. Secondly, you did bring up during your statement, uh, what was it, paid family leave? Um, I do agree. But I will say that I do applaud Senator Michael Walker, and Senator Ivor Meshevich, who have actually went ahead and did something to get our families sick pay leave and things of that sort. So to that, I do applaud those two senators, as well as everyone that sponsored and co-sponsored that bill, that have done that, because that is a great thing that we have in this country, and I'm glad that sick pay family leave is law. So pretty much that's all I want to say. But again, um, when we're talking about the economy, look, I understand we want an economy that works for everyone. But including those at the top, I agree. But we do need to make sure that they are paying their fair share and that they are getting the same treatment as everyone else.
I just have a really quick response. Just a second. He mentioned the top 1%. Many of the top 1% are CEOs of businesses, who ran those manufacturing corporations that left due to higher tax. So when it comes to 1%, we obviously need to ensure that they're paying taxes, but to say that we need to be ensuring that they're paying more taxes is a dangerous idea. If I run a business, and the taxes are 35% here, 30% here, but 10% in Mexico, and the taxes on me are non-existent there, and uh, are and here I'm having to pay more than what I originally had to pay. I'm obviously going to go to Mexico. So when it comes down to it, I just want to point out that we need to ensure that we are bringing down everybody's taxes across the bracket. And that's what the federal government has begun to do, which is a good thing. But we need to ensure that everybody is paying a step down. That's everybody in every bracket. So I think that's important. And we have so many different ways of generating revenue that hopefully we can discuss in this debate. But that goes into the top 1% as well. So hopefully, Terrell, maybe I was mistaken here, but hopefully you're agreeing that everybody in every bracket should be brought down to a fair rate of paying taxes, in terms of uh, all taxes, actually. So that's all I had to say in my response to that.
All right, Jacob Tawny will be asking you a question.
Okay. So what have you guys already asked about? Just as a quick rundown, since I wasn't here.
Okay, so basically, I asked, since they're African American, how they can appeal to white people.
What did Logan ask?
What?
What did Logan ask?
Logan has not asked that. You go second, and he goes.
Okay, so District 7 is a big manufacturing district. So what is your plan to ensure that these big auto companies and some of these smaller companies come to these places like Detroit to start rebuilding up the auto industry and the manufacturing industry in the district in the United States? Who went first last time?
Kelvin.
Okay, that's for you, Terrell. All right, manufacturing. So manufacturing is a very important thing in the district. That's most of all why we got the name the Rust Belt, because of manufacturing. Places like Detroit, they do see places like Detroit. That's the home, not only Detroit but Michigan in general, a home of the auto industry. Many different things go into this. we talk about manufacturing. Let's not also factor in, even though Pennsylvania is not in our district, Pennsylvania is also a big manufacturing state. Um, and so one of the things we would do is to make sure that sometimes when we talk about manufacturing, we talk about only here in District 5. We have to go outside the district also, because manufacturing does not just happen here, but it happens outside of the district. Under my plan, of course, I live in Ohio, so in Southwest Ohio, we have quite a few manufacturing, but mainly Southwest Ohio is agriculture. So the thing is, we have to ensure that these companies want to come back. That ensures by making sure that the corporate tax rate is lowered. Because with a high corporate tax rate, first off, with a high corporate tax rate, businesses are not going to want to come to a certain place. That's for sure. We know that. And corporate tax also varies on which area you're in. So that's one factor we play into it. We want to make sure that the corporate tax is not high, because businesses are not going to want to stay not only in different places, but businesses are not going to want to stay in this country with that corporate tax rate being high. Secondly, we have to make sure that taxes in general are high. Sometimes we talk about taxing businesses hard. We can't tax businesses that hard, no matter if it's corporate tax or what type of tax it is. We can't tax them hard. It's not going to make them want to come back. So what we do have to do, we have to make sure that they have incentives, which makes them want to come back, want to rebuild. And then, we encourage them to come back. We give them a plan. We say, hey, you come back, we'll make sure this, that, and the other happens. But not only that, but we do need to make sure that different places it does vary, like I said. But we do need to make sure, most of all, that our corporate tax is lowered so that, our businesses don't leave that state and don't leave the country. That's one of the most important things that we have to do. And you're going to hear me talk about corporate tax a lot. Um, I know my opponent will probably say corporate tax is not the only thing, but we have to really focus on corporate tax. So taxes in general, that's also, yeah, like I said, we do need to focus on taxes in general to ensure that our companies, like I said, want to come back. And when they get back, don't leave out like they did before.
Thank you. Now you, Kelvin.
Yeah, you are right. I am going to mention that corporate tax is not the only thing. In fact, we need to lower business taxes in general. Corporate tax was explained very correctly by Terrell, but we also have to remember that property tax applies to corporations, excise taxes apply to corporations, and capital gains taxes also apply to corporations, all of which we need to work as hard as we possibly can to lower. So when it comes to business tax, if I am elected, I will ensure to work with the House of Representatives and all my colleagues to create a bill that does not just lower corporate taxes, but also puts in perspective property taxes, excise taxes, and capital gains taxes. Number two, we need to deregulate. What Terrell mentioned there was that we need to lower business taxes, which he's not wrong. But is more to it behind that. The question was about manufacturing. Second, we do need to deregulate. And when I said that, when I was in the House of Representatives, I passed several bills that deregulated straight from the Small Business Administration, because some of those bills or some of those regulations are significantly unfair to businesses that are operating in the United States. One regulation that I do think that we need to keep is the parts of the carbon regulations, but we'll get to that later. Number three, we need to protect unions. Unions have protected so many jobs in this country, from ensuring insurance and health care to creating livable wages that can be negotiated by these unions, and even more than that. And I want to go back to my lower business taxes. Back when the United States had a high business tax, again, I mentioned that I lived in Galesburg, Illinois, has many had many manufacturing plants. Two of those are Maytag plant. Most of you know about Butler's was a steel plant that was here in the city. Those two left the country. And it's important that we bring attention to those who lost their jobs because of that. That was because of all 3 points that I pointed out. Lower business taxes, we need to do. We had a high business taxes. Deregulation, we had high regulation. Protecting unions, we weren't doing everything we could to protect unions. That is step number 1. Step number 1 also is, or step number 3 now is right to work states. This district is full of right to work states. We need to be bringing back and showing the importance of unions and what it does for working families across this district. That's important. I live in Western Illinois. I see this often. And in terms of lower business taxes, again, we need to be presenting incentivation to companies that hire American workers and that make products in America. These are the things. These 3 steps are imperative to bringing companies and keeping companies in this district and in this nation, and ensuring that working families across the nation are continuing to bring home the wages they need to live and to raise families and to be successful in the future. Thank you.
Follow-up question for both of you after that very long response. Do you believe that so the leaders of the unions that go to Washington to fight for the unions, do you think that they should be required to vote in Congress how the majority of the union votes, or how they favor? Kelvin.
Yeah, that's an important question. The thing about unions is that obviously they need to be having a democratic view on things, because after all, it is because of the way our nation runs that these unions are allowed to work. And yes, it is important that they're going with how majority of the union believes, because what a union is about ensuring that a majority of the workers in this country are getting enough wages, enough hours, enough health insurance and insurance from their employers to live and to survive and to thrive in this country. And that's important. So the answer to your question is simply yes.
Terrell?
Well, I do agree with Kelvin. Yes, they do need to. What's the purpose of having a union if you're not going to vote the way they vote? If you're being selected to go and voice your opinion about it, why are you going to put your personal belief into it? Why are you not going to vote the way the majority votes? Because obviously there's a saying, majority rules. So it's simply yes, they do need to vote how the majority votes on that issue. But yeah, also, am I able to rebuttal his statement before?
Yes.
Okay.
Just don't make it too long.
I'm not gonna make it long. I do agree, Kelvin. I do agree with you. There are 5 states in our district. 5 states in our district that are right to work states, such as Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana, and Kentucky. Those are right to work states. States like my home state, your home state, Missouri, and Minnesota are forced a union. Yeah, I can't speak English today. They are union states. So we do need to make sure that we do fight for unions and make sure that right to work is done for. Make sure that right to work, we're no longer right to work states in this district, but making sure that we are union states.
Okay, Logan. Your question now.
All right. That'll take a while. Okay, so in the Senate, one of the key jobs of senators is to vote on cabinet nominations that the president makes. So recently we saw Ethan Fitzgerald get elected president, and he will likely have a new cabinet with nominees to vote on. Now, we saw during the Tom Kirkman administration, I believe, that many of his cabinet nominees were shot down. So when you're voting for a cabinet nominee, if you're elected to the Senate, which would be more important to you? Making sure the president has a full cabinet, or making sure that the people in the cabinet are the best qualified for the job? The black guy from the Rust Belt state with the Republican governor will go first.
All
That's
right.
both of them, though.
Oh, okay. Which one, Kasich or?
The one that Democrats might pick up in 2018.
Okay. Yeah. Which one is that? Oh,
So definitely Illinois. Definitely Illinois. I mean, what?
I mean, the Democrats can pick up Ohio too, but
Yes.
which one of us, Logan?
The one who hasn't, Kelvin. Yeah, Kelvin.
Okay. You mentioned the Tom Kirkman administration, and I want to point out that during that time, during I was somebody who was shot down by the Senate when confirmed by President. So I'm glad that we're addressing this. And in my opinion, it is important that we have a Senate that has an open mind. I do not like when factor in political differences. They are deciding.
Yes,
Can you-
yes, we have money.
Can you mute your mic, please? Okay, thank you. Hopefully the time is reset because, anyway, it is important that senators have an open mind when they are confirming cabinet members. Political disagreements are not something that decides whether or not political or personal disagreements are not something that decides whether or not somebody will do a good job in a cabinet position. And for that reason, I believe that it is imperative that we are creating a system where bureaucrats and the government can work to create a functioning government. It's just beyond me why somebody would want to leave important cabinet positions empty simply because of political or personal differences. If somebody has experience, if somebody has the support of the president and of the people of this community or this nation, it is important that we are taking steps to allow them to do their job. And so, the short answer to this question is I would be somebody who would ensure that the president has a full administration, as long as the people who are nominated are remotely experienced in the position that they are being nominated for. So that's my answer to the question.
I just have a question about that. So, say you have
No, Jacob. Let Terrell go, and then you can ask a follow up.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Logan, for that question. I disagree. We need, of course, the president having a full cabinet is important. But what's more important is making sure that the nominee is actually qualified and make sure they're a good nominee and that they're good to be confirmed for the position that they are nominated for. While I do agree the Senate needs to be an open mind, we do need to ensure that the nominees that the president nominates are good nominees, making sure that they are qualified people for the jobs. We can't just have someone say, oh, yeah, I know a lot about this issue, so go ahead and confirm me. No, that's not how a Senate confirmation hearing works. The way a Senate confirmation hearing works is that the senators ask you questions about whatever department you're being nominated for. As you're being nominated for, they're going to ask you questions related to it. And one thing I will tell you this, if you don't know the budget of your department, I guess you can kiss one vote goodbye. Because I saw the way the Senate works, I know the way the Senate works. One question that will come up in a confirmation hearing is about the budget. You must know your department's budget. It's very imperative that you do. So to make it very short, we do need to make sure that we have qualifying nominees to be nominated for positions. So we can't just confirm people and make sure to say, oh yeah, well we want the president to have a full cabinet. I understand that, but again, we have to make sure that these nominees are qualified, that they understand the job that they're being nominated for, and that they know everything, or not all everything, but they know a lot about the job that they're being nominated for. Because we just can't have somebody come and say, I know about this, and then once they get to the confirmation hearing, they don't really know about it. That's what we can't have. So we do need to make sure that they are qualified and that they know about the position that they're being nominated for.
Yeah, Terrell, I'm sure this is just misunderstanding, but fact checkers rolled this video back just a couple minutes back to my response. I did mention that we needed to have a good nominee. I did mention that we needed to have a nominee that's qualified. I did mention that we needed a nominee who had experience and understanding of a position, and I believe that's important. So I exactly agree with you, and I mentioned that in my response. So,
well, you mentioned it in your
yeah,
response, but you
well,
also mentioned that it's important for the president to have a full cabinet.
it is important that the president has a full cabinet, and I also did mention it is also equally important that we have a good nominee and a qualified nominee. That I think that goes hand in hand. A full cabinet of good qualified nominees simply goes into the response of the question. That should the president have a full cabinet? And the answer is yes. We should work hard to ensure that the president has a full functioning government. And a functioning government means that we have officials that are good, that are qualified, and that have ideas that are based upon experience that can work to change this country. That's important. And I did mention that in my response. That's my rebuttal. I just wanted to mention that.
But
Look,
the question was, which was
wait.
more important, having a full cabinet or making sure that the nominees are qualified. It's
Well,
one or the other.
it isn't one or the other. It's ensuring that the president has a full cabinet of qualified, good nominees. It's both of them.
Hello?
Realistically, it's important that we have a functioning government. It's important that it is just as
Okay.
as if that we have good and qualified nominees. Hold on just a second. I'm almost done. And we cannot put those against each other. It's important that we have a functioning government. It's important that we have good and qualified nominees. So we need to ensure that we are not taking one side or the other on that, because that is, in my opinion, that is not something that I would do as senator. Is take the side of having a government full but not qualified good nominees, or have good and qualified nominees but taking away the opportunity from people that just because we personally disagree with them, like I mentioned before. So I think both of them are important when we're confirming Senate nominees.
Logan and Evan, wait.
Misunderstanding
Logan and
then.
Evan, if we could go ahead and just put the rule to limit these rebuttals to a minute, please.
By the way, I just want to say where I went. I was on the phone with Gravis Marketing just now about
what they said.
8th grade student council run. They told me it'd be $1,600
Wait, for what?
for my student council run for yard signs. $1,600. And then I asked about their consulting services, and they said, we don't typically do middle school student council bids.
Yeah, so we can go ahead and limit these rebuttals to 30 minutes or a minute or something like that.
30 minutes. 30 minutes for rebuttal.
30 seconds. Sorry.
Well, Jacob, I think you had a follow-up question.
Oh, yes. Let me try to think back, as that was the longest rebuttal. Oh, yeah. So, in the cabinet, will you, so this goes to both of you. When you are confirming a Secretary of State nominee, are you going to ensure that the nominee is educated and not just American foreign policy disagreements and other things, but know a lot about the world that we have outside of the United States, to ensure that they have had firsthand experience with these disagreements? Are you going to ensure that they are the most qualified candidate? And if they are not the most qualified candidate, are you going to have one of these. You all remember how long Fitz's confirmation hearing was? Are you going to make sure that the confirmation hearing is quick but diligent, or long but when you're asking questions that don't really matter?
So I guess I'll go first on this. Well, of course it is important. A Secretary of State is a big role. It's one of the top positions in the presidential administration. We want to make sure as a Senate that, um, we are voting on nominees that, again, qualifications are going to play a factor into it. Quite frankly, we're going to have to put qualifications aside for a minute. You have to know about foreign policy, not just foreign policy here at home. You have to know about foreign policy abroad. Again, that's what foreign policy is. It's knowing about the outside world, outside of the United States, and making sure that we are having negotiations with other countries. So that's a big role of Secretary of State. They travel to different nations. They do peace treaties. They do all type of things, negotiating on behalf of the United States. All those things. You must know how to do that. You must know how to do it. And if you don't know how to do it, you can't be Secretary of State. I'm sorry to say that. You can't be Secretary of State if you do not know about foreign policy. That's the thing. A lot of people say they know a lot about foreign policy. I'll be the first to tell you I don't know a lot about foreign policy, honestly. Um, so I hope no one that runs for president and they win asks me to be their Secretary of State because I would decline that. Um, no, but you must make sure that you're educated on foreign policy. You must make sure that you have an understanding of it. If you don't have an understanding of it, you will not. If you're confirmed, you will not have the best time at it. The best time is making sure, although you're having fun at the same time, you do need to ensure that you know about the subject. And also to finish off, I'm going to vote on a nominee. I'm going to vote on based off how they give answers, and I'm going to vote based off of how much of an understanding they have for the job. If I see that they have, somewhat of an understanding, I'll give them that. But if I see that a nominee has little to none understanding of the job, I'm going to vote nay. So, Kelvin.
This is also an important question. And sticking on the idea of Secretary of State, foreign policy knowledge and qualification is obviously imperative. And yes, I would only vote on a nominee who has those qualifications. But in order to be exactly sure of those qualifications, like the question mentions, I think it is important that we go as long as we need in a cabinet hearing to ensure that something as important as Secretary of State has the correct qualifications. And if somebody isn't willing to go as long as it takes to become Secretary of State and to voice their knowledge about as foreign policy as much as there is of it to discuss, I don't believe that they are of the right judgment to be confirmed by the United States Senate. Obviously, personal issues aside in that response there, but so at the end of the day, if it took, I would go as long as it takes in a hearing to get a clear understanding of the knowledge and the placement of a nominee before confirming them to the cabinet. And again, I want to emphasize here that I do believe that we need to have good, qualified, experienced, and knowledgeable nominees in their selected positions. Thank you.
I do just want to say real quick though, um, I'm all for making sure that the nominee is questioned as long as the senators think they should be about the subject. But I also, one idea that I would bring to the Senate is also if you feel that you can do that, we should have a time limit on there and say, okay, we're going to close out this day and we're going to pick it back up on the next day. In real life, some cabinet hearings are day by day. Most of them are. So really, I think that you can place a time limit on there. and just take it day by day. So have day one hearing on this day, day two hearing, and then so forth until all the senators feel that they are satisfied with the nominee and that they feel that the nominee has either answered their questions or hasn't answered their questions. So I'm forwards going as long as we need to, but also in a day by day process and a day by day confirmation hearing.
All right, I'll be asking the next question. My question goes to both of the candidates. As you know, there is a lot of violence against African Americans with police officers. And while some commend their efforts, others and many others.
Evan, could you speak a little louder? Because I can barely understand you.
Startled me, for heck's sake. So, as you know, a lot of African Americans sometimes are getting suppressed by police officers. And while some commend their efforts of beating up African Americans, many, including myself, and actually, I don't know what Jacob thinks, are against it. Do you believe that police officers should be required to wear body cameras? As while some say it violates their privacy rights, others say that they should not get privacy rights because they're on active duty police officer and it can catch them doing bad stuff like beating up African Americans. Whoever went first this time can go second this time.
So I believe that's my response. There's something that goes more into police violence against anybody, especially African Americans, but anybody in general, than just having body cameras on. And so this question is not only regarding body cameras, which short answer for that is yes, they should be required to wear body cameras and have dash cameras, but it's a multifaceted question here, and I want to make sure that I'm quickly pointing out a couple of the different topics that go into it. The biggest thing that I believe as a personal belief is understanding between community and law enforcement. If that understanding is there of what fears the community and the law enforcement, we have a binding. The closer we are together as a community, as a functioning community that works together to create lower crime rates, to create a more safer area for everybody, the less we are going to see this happen. It's also important that police get the training that they need to, and in some places it has been the fault of the training that an officer has gotten that resulted in tragedy. And many of the cases that we see on the news, or that make top headlines, it is in many cases just to do it. And that is why I believe that we need to have body cameras and dash cameras to confirm this. We need to ensure that we have confirmation of whose fault it is before we are prosecuting, before we are doing anything like that. And in many cases, we have had those body cameras, which have played an imperative role in investigations of these sorts. So yes, it is important that we have body cameras, but in a multifaceted issue like police brutality, it's also important that we have understanding between law enforcement and community to create a functioning, a safe, and a community that is moving in the right direction.
All right, I guess I'll go now. I will say yes, we do need to make sure that our police officers are wearing body cameras. They may say it's privacy. While you're an active officer, while you're on duty, the police department needs to see what you're doing. And I will say this here where I live, Cleveland, Ohio, our police officers do indeed wear body cameras. Um, dash cameras do not always catch what happens. Dash cameras can only catch but so much. Um, they can only catch but so much. So I feel that they do need to wear body cameras, and that the police department does need to see what you're doing at all times, especially while not when you're at home and do anything else, but when you're on active duty, they need to be able to see what you're doing while you're on active duty. Which is why, and going into that, body cameras are so important because it also catches what you've done, and other officers too. It catches what you all done in a situation when investigations are being conducted into these police officers, when they're doing things to others, um, and they're being investigated for it, they go back and look not only at that dash camera footage, but they look at the body cam footage and see, okay, you did this, that, and the other. It may not have been protocol for them to do that. It may not have been part of their training when they were in training to become a police officer. It may not have been in their training to do that. Uh, so essentially, those body cameras are so important, and I believe that Senator Meshkovich also passed a bill relating to body cameras. So we do need to ensure that our police officers are wearing body cameras so that we can monitor them while they're on active duty, and that we can see these things that they're doing, especially if it's not protocol and it's not proper protocol, when something very important as far as pulling your weapon out or things of that sort occurs.
Okay. So it's my question now, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So with Kelvin, you being from an agriculture state, and Terrell, you being from a manufacturing state, how can you find middle ground to represent not just that one part of your state and of District 7, but all of District 7? And that'll go to Terrell.
Well, I will say this. Yes, Kelvin does live in a agricultural place. I live in a manufacturing state. You go, and as I brought up, you go southwest in Ohio or southeast, you will find agriculture and manufacturing. Um, if you're driving from Cleveland to Sandusky, which is west, if you're driving west on that road, you're going to see agriculture. So Ohio is not only a manufacturing state; it's an agricultural state too. It's just that me not being exposed to agriculture a lot because I don't really travel throughout the state of Ohio all like that. I'm not a big traveler. Finding middle ground is important, because we both want to do something about manufacturing and agriculture. I know Kelvin does. Again, I do applaud him for his irrigation bill that he did when he was in Congress. It's unfortunate that it did not pass, but it shows that he took the initiative to go ahead and do something about it. That's one thing I do applaud Kelvin for. So that's one thing. You have to be sure both of us want to do something in some shape, form, or fashion regarding manufacturing and agriculture. So making sure that we find some form of middle ground there is very important, to make sure that we are doing things that benefit not only that one part of agriculture, but it's benefiting that part of manufacturing also.
Kelvin.
I think that question, and I'm going to tell you why I really don't like the way that question was put, and it's nothing against you. It was actually a really good question to put in perspective two things that are really important in this district. But the reason I don't like, I guess, the way this question was formatted is that there's no middle ground. Everywhere in this district is important for agriculture. Everywhere in this district is important for manufacturing. And in some places, we see agriculture manufacturing. It's important that we are looking at it from all directions. Again, I live in, I mentioned where I live. I'm surrounded by cornfields, city of 32,000, just out in the middle of the boonies. But again, I mentioned we had Maytag and Butler's plant in this city, which left a catastrophe of people who were without jobs, and in a time when it was imperative that people were making a good income. And so it's not only important that we have a good knowledge of agriculture, but it's also important that we have good knowledge of manufacturing and business as well, going into the job of District 5. Senator, there's not many districts in this country that have such a diverse amount of issues that have to be covered than District 5. And all of them are equally important. And it's not hard to find middle ground. You go to just about any city, like I said, right out in the middle of the boonies with about 35,000 people in it. And you can find a manufacturing plant, and you go just a couple miles down the road, and you're going to see a bunch of corn and bean fields. So there really is no middle ground. Everything in terms of agriculture and of manufacturing is of the same importance. And if I'm elected District 5 representative, I have said again, I had my 3 points: lower business tax, going into corporate tax, property tax, excise taxes, and capital gains taxes, deregulate businesses, which I have already done. I've showed the people that I can do that, and protect unions, which I have also done in the House of Representatives and will continue to do if I am so fortunate to be elected senator. I've mentioned uh, what personally affects me, and that is that all of this is of the same importance, and I would treat it all as the same importance as senator. Thank you.
Rogan.
Hello. Okay, so let me think. All right, so somebody wanted me to ask this, one of our audience members. Many colleges have a position of affirmative action where they have certain quotas based on race, and sometimes that can be discriminatory against different races based on who is at the top of their class. So I was wondering if you are in support of affirmative action programs, or are you opposed to them? We'll start with whoever did not go first last time.
So it goes to Kelvin.
The thing is, there are affirmative action programs that I disagree with, and some that I do agree with and that I think are imperative. But here, I think it is important that we highlight the fact that we need to have an affirmative action program that works. And even if that means, tearing down and totally rebuilding the meaning of affirmative action, I am totally okay with it. Quotas based on race are not okay. It is important that we have an affirmative action program that establishes what we have in jobs, that employers can't discriminate against race, religion, sexual orientation, or any of that different stuff. But it is important that we have a firm system that is allowing a diversity of people into universities, into community colleges, and any colleges in general. So to answer that question, no, I don't support affirmative action programs that are universities to make quotas based on race. I believe that diversity is good personally, but from a leadership standpoint, I believe that it is important that we are accepting everybody who is, I guess, qualified to go into a university in terms of grades, in terms of discipline records and such in their past, and people who just want to learn and change the future of this nation. So, yeah, that's my answer for that.
All right then. So I'm just gonna say that discrimination, first off, should have no place. It has no place in the United States. This country was built first off of people being equal, and that's what this country was built off of. You should not be turned away from colleges, universities because of your race, because of your religion. We have to make sure. I do agree with Kelvin. We do need to make sure diversity is a good thing. So we have a diverse culture, but we do need to make sure that discrimination happens does not happen anymore. Um, People. I'm not going to really go on about this, but you can experience discrimination, especially in the South. In the South, there's a lot of people that still, there's still discrimination in certain parts of the South. We do need to ensure, though, that people are not, again, being turned away because of their race or religion. For indeed, one thing, religion, because the Constitution says you have freedom of religion, which, again, if you were to turn away somebody because of their religion, that would, again, be against the Constitution. So that's pretty much how I feel about it. So next.
Wait, I have a follow-up question to that. Would both of you, if you are elected senator, be in support of a revitalizing the affirmative action program to base it off income level instead of race?
No.
Care to explain?
Yeah, I will explain. That is not okay. Not accepting somebody because of their income is not really a student's fault by any means. If I'm coming from a community college in which I got free because I've lived in a community or something like that, programs that communities have that allow kids to go 2 years at a community college. If I see somebody coming out of that, but they have a low income level, it's absolutely ridiculous that I deny them an education. That's ridiculous. You wouldn't do that in K through 12 education. It's just as unethical to do it in higher education as well. And for that reason, no, I would not revise it to be based on income. And I assume that is based on what they mentioned earlier with quotas based on race. If we have an affirmative action program that is very, very, very changed than the one that we have now, again, the one that allows colleges to quota races in when admitting students, then no, I'm not in support of it. Not in the current stance that we are now. A ways from here, if we're able to rebuild affirmative action to be a more fair program for everybody, then it would be okay to say, hey, don't discriminate based on income. And if we do see discrimination based on income, then I think it's important that that's when we take action against colleges and such based on revitalized affirmative action. So that's my answer to it. And yeah.
Terrell.
All right. So, yeah, I think it's not a smart idea to base affirmative action off of income. First off, there's particular places in the United States where people are sometimes already judged because of their based off their income. And that's a terrible thing. We do need to ensure, though. I do agree with Kelvin. We do need to ensure that's for everybody. As I did say, discrimination has no place in education, nor does it have a place in the work facility. Um, but no, having affirmative action revitalized and having it based off your income is it's not like I said, not a very smart idea.
Okay, Evan, it's your turn to ask a question. Mr. Cunt, are you there? Okay, since he's not responding, I'll just ask my question. So, oh shit, what's my question? Okay, I think I got it. So, with both of you, well, it's just going to be a really simple question. Are you in favor of when we had our event number 8? Were you in favor of the governor of Wyoming and Nebraska and South Dakota's actions to completely ban abortion?
I guess I go. Okay. Well, as you know, I am pro-life with exceptions. I don't think it's totally moral to ban abortion as a whole. Basing it off of our constitution, our constitutional democracy, we are basically, pretty much, um, we are basically, saying that. Um, I'm going to say this. Abortion is something that's very, I don't talk about a lot for reasons. Uh, Roe v. Wade is settled law. I'm going to say that it's the law. Um, it's the law. It should not be going against by the states. The states should not go against that. It's been the law for God knows how long now. It's been law for decades. So when talking about something as far as this, I'm not in favor of the governors completely banning abortion. Because again, what if someone in that state uh, got pregnant, and then it's causing harm to the mother? Are you just going to allow the mother to suffer? No.
Yes.
Logan has a very interesting analogy for that.
Are you just gonna let them die? No. Incest. Incest is legal, believe it or not, in certain states, particularly Georgia.
If abortion was legal in Star Wars, Darth Vader would be ruling the galaxy.
Can I finish my statement? And I hope this is not going against my time because I'm being interrupted. Um, when talking about that, yes, we do need to make sure. So I'm not in favor of the governors banning abortion completely because I do have the exceptions: rape, incest, harm to the mother. Those are my exceptions. Um, and so, as far as that, if you can't allow that, then you honestly don't need to be governor. Because again, the law is the law, and you should not try to go against the law of the land.
Yeah, I'm gonna start out saying I know some people will have their opinions on what I believe in terms of this topic. But here I'm just going to say what you can confirm on my website. It's www.hawthornesenate.weebly.com. You can go check.
And you can fact check there.
Yeah, you can fact check there. That I am pro-life again, with the exceptions of rape and incest, and mother's life at risk as well. Um, as well as not supporting abortion in the past the first trimester. And the reason for that is I think it's completely immoral. Um, I believe that life begins at conception, and for that reason, I believe that many abortions that occur for seemingly no reason is absolutely murder. Um, and I don't see why we are giving the death penalty to people who are killing some people out on the streets and being murderers, but we are allowing the murder of infants. It's confusing to me, and it goes very personal. It's a very personal topic to me, um, and I just think that it's important that mothers who are carrying babies have rights in terms of if it's rape, incest, or mother's life at risk um, in the first trimester. Second, I think it's important that we are um, creating proper education and ensuring that adoption is also an option on the table, and revitalizing the adoption system to make it more um, child efficient uh, and to speed up the process a little bit. So that's my opinion on that. You can fact check it at my website, and uh, again, like I said, it goes very personal for me. So hopefully, no assumptions have been made prior to this as to what I believe in terms of abortion. Thank you.
So I just have a question for Mr. Hawthorne then. Mr. Hawthorne, would you just say in general, because I just want to make sure I get an understanding before I twist your words, because you really didn't mention this. Um, so you oppose the governor's decisions, correct?
Total bans on abortion, yes. I would oppose that. In further trimesters, like second and third, if you're a victim of rape, incest, or your life is at risk, it's usually evident at that point
Mm-hmm.
um, that there could be a situation. And in that case, then I would say it's absolutely immoral to have an abortion. Yeah.
Okay, I
Um,
just want to
so
make sure.
I don't support the total ban on abortions that the governors have uh, created.
All right, I just want to make sure because I didn't want to twist your words up. Because you really didn't mention it. That's why I was just trying to get a clear understanding. Moderators,
Are you gonna twist his words or not?
we're going back to moderators.
All right, I don't know what the hell these other moderators are doing. They can do what they want. Though.
Socialism sucks.
No. Socialism kills.
Yes, true. I mean, if you look at Venezuela,
Venezuela.
Is it my question? Loaded.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So, in a state in your district, the state of Wisconsin, favorite is known for cheese. What are you
Dairy
going?
farming.
What are you go? Yes. What are you going to do, and not just Wisconsin, but other states, to ensure that we have proper laws to make sure that our food and things that are produced in these factories are the healthiest are the healthiest that they can be, to ensure that we are not killing our future by giving them these foods that have all these pesticides and have been processed and all this. So what are you going to do in means of labeling GMOs and informing the people about what kind of food they're eating and what they're putting in their body? Kelvin.
Yeah, this is an important topic. One way that I would do that is ensure that companies are required to label GMOs that are put into foods at manufacturing. So, basically, what that is that we are labeling genetically modified foods and telling them what we're doing to it. Ensure that we're continuing to create accurate nutrition facts, labels, what's in things, warnings of what products may contain. Um, so it really isn't hard to answer here. But yeah, that would be my answer. Continuing to label GMOs and more accurate nutrition facts and such like that.
Terrell.
Alrighty then. Um, Wisconsin is a big cheese state, and they have a lot of dairy farmers. Yeah, we do need to make sure that we're labeling um, foods as GMOs, particularly GMOs, genetically modified foods. We do need to let our people know what the government, or not really the government, but others are doing to it. It's very important. The health of our people is very important, which again we have to focus on. One thing I will say though, and I'm going to comment on this, is one thing as far as production, since we're on talking about Wisconsin very quickly, is synthesized milk. Um, Now, synthesized milk is not real milk. If it hasn't come from a cow, it's not considered real milk. The problem is synthesized milk is taking over, and it's putting a lot of these dairy farmers in a terrible place because they're not able to sell. Um, they're not really able to sell their milk. If they have milk that comes straight from the cow, they're not able to sell it. Um, really because of the fact that synthesized milk has taken over. We have to make sure that we're taking steps to ensure that not only synthesized milk but other things that substitute for our foods. We have to make sure that we're letting these people know what it actually is instead of sugarcoating it. And that's the thing. Our government, as far as being transparent, when our government does let our people know stuff, they don't let them know in full detail. Um, we have to make sure that our people do know what is going on to these foods, especially to milk. We do need to make sure that they know about these things. That's being part of government transparency. Um, that's very important. We can talk about government transparency all day long. We're not going to do that, but of course that plays a role in it. So I just wanted to bring up that fact. Um, since you did bring up Wisconsin and it being a cheese, uh, you know. So yeah, that's my response. I don't know if
I don't know. I
I
don't
don't know
know
if my
about.
opponent has a rebuttal or not, but
I don't know about you, but I'd rather drink synthesized milk than cow piss.
Logan,
I'll ask a question.
finally, where you been?
I ate dinner.
WYD.
Well, my
Are
question.
you black?
No, but these two are, unfortunately, one of them is probably going to be D-5 senators. So let's get this on the road. How are you going to bring jobs back to D-5? Terrell, start.
We already asked this question, but okay.
we did cover that question.
Okay. Abortion.
Neutrality bad.
We already talked about abortion.
It's 5 minutes. Abortion.
We already asked about
Stop
abortion.
screaming.
Abortion. Terrell.
We already asked about it.
Asked about it.
No, net neutrality. Net neutrality. Ask about net neutrality.
Who's blacker? Okay, fine. Net neutrality. Terrell.
Net neutrality, Terrell. Not too smart.
Yeah, Terrell probably doesn't even know what net neutrality is.
I'm sorry. Can you go to Kelvin real quick? I gotta do something.
So you have to shoot.
He has to Google net neutrality because he doesn't know what it is.
No, I'm not talking. I actually have to do something as far
By
as
the way,
getting ready for tomorrow.
Fitz is now complaining he should win Alaska.
Net neutrality.
Tell Fitz to shut up and go to hell.
I don't agree with net neutrality. Net neutrality is bad. It's unethical business procedure
Because I like to tax porn.
that the government has to.
Lost my vote.
Unethical.
You're an ethical piece of bullshit.
Okay, thank you. Unethical business procedure that the government has to present. So I don't agree, or I do agree with net neutrality. I don't agree with repeal of net neutrality. I just want to make that clear in case that was.
Never mind.
I just wanted to make that clear. If it's unethical business procedure to speed up your own by slowing down others.
Free market.
Or just because somebody else is smaller and taking customers and all that different stuff. It's unethical business procedure. That's not proper competition. That's not how it works. If you want to have proper competition, maybe try to work on making your Wi-Fi a little better. So I disagree with the repeal of net neutrality. I agree with net neutrality that was passed by President Obama and anybody in Mex. So I just want to that's my response for that.
Ohio is where all the blacks.
All right, I'm back. All right, yeah, net neutrality. Let's go.
Live in Ohio.
What about Ohio?
Fitz won Ohio.
That's debatable.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest map ever, though, because I gave you Cuyahoga, but I gave him like every other.
Okay, I'm sorry, real quick, and I hope this is not counted against me. 9 times out of 10, I know this. You run up the margins in certain parts of the state, you win Ohio. Anyway,
You narrowly take Cuyahoga, but he takes like all.
okay, first off, how are we narrowly taking Cuyahoga County?
By like 1 point.
No, it would not even be that close. I'm telling you. Evan, I live in Cuyahoga County. Let me be.
That doesn't matter. It has a lot.
No, I know more about Cuyahoga County than you do. So,
can we please focus on the issues and not Cuyahoga County?
Yeah, Cuyahoga County. Look, Evan, you brought it up.
Okay. Bye. Kelvin, you get to go first. He was being weird.
All right, no, excuse me. First off, we picked you to moderate this debate. We did not pick you so you can, interrupt. I'm sorry.
Kick him out.
We did not moderate. We did not choose you to moderate to interrupt us. So I'd ask you not to interrupt me during my response. Thank you. Now, excuse me. Would you like to talk or...
Going towards the top.
Keep pissing off Evan, it's fine. Molinaro for governor. Molinaro for governor.
All right, we're going to move on to our next question, Jacob.
I was about to, okay.
Ask the question.
So, do you believe that if you are in fact a minority that you should have basic human rights? Terrell.
Oh, do I get to go first on this one, or am I going to be interrupted by that guy from New York?
Are you going to be ejected from this debate?
All right, here we go. If you eject me from the debate, then that just shows what type of person you are. Moving right along, so I can answer this question without being. Excuse me. I'm trying to
answer the question, Terrell. It's not that difficult. I won't interrupt you if you just talk.
Terrell, you had the question. Come on. Let's go!
Give me a minute. 1 second.
Did someone kick Terrell?
Human rights. If I get kicked, Jacob, you're not going to hear the end of it.
I wasn't going to kick you.
Human rights.
Shouldn't be given.
Quote from Hillary Clinton. I'm not going to quote her.
Don't quote Satan.
Repeat your question, because I don't like the way that question is structured.
Fine. Should everyone... Right. Oh, here's a question. Should foreigners currently residing in the United States be allowed to vote in our elections?
No.
Should they be able to vote?
Yeah. Should they have constitutional rights and be able to vote in our election without being a citizen?
Okay. When talking about foreigners, then we don't refer to them as foreigners. We refer to them as immigrants that currently reside in the United States. I'm going to say this. If you're a taxpayer, if you're an immigrant, you pay taxes, I don't see why you shouldn't get at least some of the rights that we get. If you're a taxpayer, you're contributing to this American government.
What if they're black?
The United States government, if you're contributing to that, you are, quite frankly, you play a big part in that. And I feel that you should be given, if not full rights, that you should be given some rights in terms of the Constitution.
What if they're an ISIS?
If they're ISIS?
Yes.
All right. That's overstepping it. As I said,
I have a follow-up. What happened if they're black?
Your follow-up is what?
What happened if they're black?
I'm not answering that question because that's not a serious question.
Yes, okay, you say bye-bye.
Can I ask a question, please? Just let me ask a question before you ask
a question because Terrell is being very.
No. Just before you say bye-bye to Terrell, just let me ask a question.
Ask it.
Okay. So, so my question is about cybersecurity. So recently, there have been some members of this community who have been voting in elections with 5,000 bots.
Logan, stop talking about yourself.
I'm not going to name. No, we're not naming names here in the debate. We're not going to name names. So I was wondering if you guys are going to be taking a heightened stance on cybersecurity in elections, and if you will be passing any cybersecurity bills to stop people voting with 5,000 bots.
10,000, Logan.
I'm gonna let Kelvin go first.
No, you're gonna go.
I went first last time.
Terrell, you left Mac. You shouldn't tell us what to do.
Did I leave Mac though?
Yes.
So did Kelvin, though. Okay? I'll answer the question then. G-Dubs.
Kelvin goes first because I answered the last few questions first.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and answer it.
I'm officially announcing my run for District 5 Senate. Okay,
This
my
is
debate
an
now.
important question. And, internet and cyberspace seems to be one of the leading problems in modern warfare and in modern situations right now. Because we see so many nations interfering on our democracy, or so many people interfering on our democracy. Cough, cough, infant cough, cough. And government documents, in many cases, getting confiscated, and all this different stuff. But there's some people who are introducing plans to create whole new branches of government or whole new branches of the military. I don't agree with it. I would support forming a joint task force, and not a new branch, a joint task force of using trained officials from Air Force, FBI, and CIA, which have all worked to combat cybersecurity and have worked with technology to combat threats against our nation.
Yeah, what's 15 times 7?
And as
What's 15
I
times
will
7?
not be interrupted, please.
I'm doing math homework. Can somebody tell me what 15 times 7 is quickly?
Okay, what is no. Stormy has to get out. Stormy has to get out. This is going on YouTube, man. This is going on YouTube. You can't be doing this.
I want everyone to flag this video and the channel.
No. Oh, it's 105, by the way. Kelvin, I swear to God, if you don't talk. Talk!
Answer the question, Kelvin.
Terrell.
You guys are bad at this debate thing.
Hey, Terrell.
Yeah, Kelvin.
What do you want to do here?
I don't know. I'm feeling some things right now.
Why don't you just answer the question?
Oh, Terrell's gone. I guess it's just a candidate form now with Kelvin Hawthorne. Thank you, Kelvin, for actually having the guts to be here, despite the profile pictures of some other members of this call. But yeah, we're gonna ask you some questions. Stormy, get out. Okay, you're gonna take Evan's YouTube channel is gonna be taken down because of you. Oh, now Kelvin's gone.
Let's do a presidential.
Stormy, your profile pictures, your profile pictures showing up on the live stream.
All right, this is everyone from Detroit.
YouTube, please take down. YouTube, take down this channel, please.
Bye bye.